It's like the story of my life with these Kairak reach-ins. Look at this one. Complaint is that it's not temping, but look at all the components are just, I don't know why I should even be surprised. People just bypassing everything. Parts just sitting in here. Wires going everywhere. Good grief. Cap missing off the receiver. King valve. So the complaint is that it's not working. Fan motor's not running. I gotta start from the beginning. Okay, so I pulled the unit out to check power. Let's see if you guys can hear this. You can hear it clicking. That clicking was relays turning on. There's some kind of a break in electrical wire somewhere. I don't know if it's here or it's probably inside, but we'll investigate. And look at this plug first. See if it's here. And that's it. Got a bad. It's got a bad plug and it's not making good contact. So that's a problem. So that needs to be changed. The receptacle's jacked up too. Okay, temporarily I just plugged it into the bottom of that receptacle. Looks like it might be overfilled on glycol, but it's also warm, so when it gets colder it's gonna contract. Everything's running. Condenser is kind of clean, a little bit dirty. We'll have to clean that. So everything in here is bypassed. Sounds like there was a sound from the condenser fan, whatever it was. I mean, you got pressure controls back here just sitting here. All the wires. This timer doesn't belong here. My guess is that they're using the low pressure control to control temperature. And frayed wires. It's dangerous. Fan motor doesn't sound good. The unit also needs casters. The drain pan's missing. That one's decent, but that one right there is busted, so we need new casters on it. This is a tiny little guy. You may consider replacing it. I don't know. You can definitely fix it too. I'm gonna see if it comes out of temperature. I don't know why every time I open these up I'm surprised by how hacked they are. How many wires are just I mean, what a mess. This is what it should look like. I mean, everything in the control panel, sensors being used, you know, that's how they should look. The unit is also, all this is oil. All that is oil, so the king valve is leaking, or the suction service valve is leaking too, which is very common on these. So it's going to have a refrigerant leak also. Okay, it's kind of a mess to get the gauges on, but I got them on now. Got about a 65 degree ambient temperature, 66. There's no sight glass on this unit, so we're just going to use a rule of thumb, about 25 to 30 degrees above ambient on our liquid saturation temperature. So 66, 76, 86, 96. So we're low. Our suction pressure looks low also, and the box temp is high, so we're going to add some refrigerant. I got some right here. We're just basically going to get our liquid saturation temperature up higher to about 30 degrees above ambient. We know it has a leak. It's something I got to fix, but I'm just going to put gas in it to get it going. A little bit higher than it needs to be, but it's fine because we're leaking. This will get them by. We're going to submit a quote and get this repaired ASAP. I'm going to watch the box come down to temp first though. Okay, so we're getting started on fixing this thing. We got the approval, so we're going to gut it. and then put it all back together correctly. We're going to start by pumping down the liquid line receiver, front seating the valve, changing the dryer, fixing the suction valve leak. That's back in there. We'll try to clean some things up, and we're going to change that fan motor, put the controls back in, new sensors, and go from there. But one thing at a time, pump down and fix the leak in the dryer first. Decided that recovering the charge is going to be just easier rather than trying to pump it down and having a high side gauge hose here the whole time while I'm working. Just takes a couple seconds. I didn't even have to go all fancy. I'm just using crappy hoses. There really isn't that much gas in this thing at all. So almost there. Okay, so recovered, slid out the condensing unit. Now you can unhook the glycol lines, drain it, and pull this whole skid out, but I really don't want to have to deal with burping the glycol and all that stuff. I could slide it out enough to be able to get in here, braze this fitting on, and do this dryer. So I could do everything right here. This is all that I'm going to do. I don't want to go through the hassle of that. So we're going to change this valve, pipe it in here, put a new dryer and a sight glass, and then we'll worry about all the electrical and everything else. We're going to focus on the leak first. Okay. Come over here, or at least try to hold this camera. Okay. And then push right here. Oh, okay. You can see, okay. So we're having a hard time because we can't get this rotolock nut free, and it's kind of a problem. So we're trying right now. I've got someone pushing down on the compressor, and I'm using a big ass pipe wrench, and it's not budging. We put some you know, rust buster on there, trying to get it to break free. But at this point, if it wasn't in an awkward location, we could bolt down the skid and do it. But at this point, I'm probably going to call this before we create a bigger problem, because I could still get this unit running today, and we could possibly just change this compressor. That thing is just seized on there, and you could see, I mean, I went from every wrench I can do. My giant channels, pipe wrench, small or medium channels, and then my small channels. I've done everything that I could. Putting a cheater bar isn't going to help, because the problem is we can't get enough weight to hold the condensing unit down while I'm pulling up. So this guy, I think we're going to call it, and we're just going to tell him we need to change the compressor. But we're going to go ahead and continue on with changing the fan motor and changing the controls, and then we'll change the compressor after. Okay, so sometimes we run into these kind of problems, and the point I want to make is just because I already knew what I was coming in here to do, I didn't start butchering everything, because you never know the problems you're going to run into. You do things systematically, and you pick the most important things. So my goal was to do the refrigerant leak first, right? So now, since I can't get that rotolock nut free, I can still vacuum this unit down and charge it up and get it going temporarily. So that way they have a refrigerator. This can go for a walk-in cooler, walk-in freezer, anything. So just because you're going to do a big job, you want to do things systematically, just in case you run into these problems. So now what we're going to do is I'm just going to go in here and start replacing the controls and get the unit operational. We're finishing on the fan motor, and we'll get it running, and then we'll come back on another morning. I got here at 7:30, 7:45 this morning, and I don't want to be here till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because they're going to have a really, really busy lunch rush right now. And they're going to be slamming in here. They got a whole cook's line of stuff, and they'll be jamming here in just a few minutes. So you always want to think about the customer's best interest, and also doing your job as efficiently as possible. So if you take things slowly, then you can, you know, in case you run into problems, it makes it easier to figure it out. So I've got this almost finished, but you see how much cleaner that is? Now we're gonna end up changing this compressor, and I'm gonna fix the routing of this pressure control. I might even change it, I don't know, we'll see. But I redid the cord, made extra for now, so that way when later we can do some stuff. But you see how I ran everything where it's supposed to go? Everything's put back, the relays are all in, you know? I mean, this is so bad that the bracket that holds the digital display is missing too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to another one, disassemble it, and take that bracket over to my stainless steel shop and have them fabricate me a bracket out of just galvanized. I called Kairak, and it was gonna be like 6 weeks build time. So for like a $5 bracket. So I'll just go to my stainless shop, and they'll have it done in a day. But yeah, so you see how we're going. We're putting it all back together systematically and making it look nice and clean. Unfortunately, this cover is going to be missing, because I don't know what they did with that, but we're almost there. Okay, so now we're going to drill the hole in the glycol cap right here, okay, so that the sensors can run down into there. So I'm going to drill a pilot hole right in the middle, try not to ruin the floor. sacrifice my kneeling pad. Got a pilot hole, now we're going to go big. Kind of a pain in the butt without ripping your hand off. There we go. No pun intended. Alright. So, next thing we're going to do is we got to figure out, there's a half-inch copper line right here with a half-inch copper T. We've got to go all the way to the bottom of that T with these sensors. We've got to go all the way down there. So what we do is we go ahead and put this cap on. And we're going to mark where we want these things. So that way once we get them down in there, we know how far it needs to be. So, essentially, it needs to be, the bottom of this tape needs to come to the top of this cap. The bottom of this tape right here. So I'll put like a mark right there too. So once we shove it in there, that needs to come to there, and that's going to get us to the perfect mark. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and feed this down through. Then remember, it's going to come to about right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on the bottom side of this. We're going to put a fat wad of tape. So that way someone can't yank the sensor out of the hole. So we're going to put the tape wad about right there. Because I've had these where someone will come and they'll pull the sensors right out of the hole. So now we've got that, right? And that essentially is going to let it go to right there, but you can't pull it through. And then we'll silicone that. Okay, so now before we put the cap on is the tricky part. We got to feed this in, and that's why I use the zip ties. We got to get it right down into the middle, so you should be able to feel it in there. It's tricky. Feel around by hand. You'll feel it when it goes down the hole. Okay, just went down. It's not all the way through. There we go. And we just made it all the way in there. So now we should be able to get this cap on. We're pushed all the way down into there, so now it can sense the right temperatures, and we've got that wad of tape there so that way it can't be accidentally pulled out. And then usually what I'll do to give myself room on the other side is we'll zip tie in here. We'll take these sensor wires and zip tie them to something so that way it can't. That's another way to make sure it doesn't pull through. There we go, that's all. And then that's it. We're good, and we'll silicone this hole real quick. Just a dab of silicone. Right up here on the top, just to make sure nothing gets in that hole. A little bit on this side. And that's it. Okay, so our sensors are ran. Someone popped that cover off, but our sensors are ran. They're ran down into the glycol solution. They're going through there. We put a chase nipple so that way the cables don't rub out. And that's pretty much it. So my unit is already down to temperature, satisfied. We will come back and we will clean this up. Remember I said I don't have the holder for this right now, but this will eventually go right here when I get a holder made. So we're gonna rob it off of another box.
pressure control, we'll figure out a good place for that when I come back too and clean that up. But for now, we're already down to temp and the box is satisfied. So we're just cleaning up our messes temporarily. We're gonna put the cover back on, and then this is back down to temp. And then we'll come back, we'll change this compressor, put that cover on, and be done with it. Okay, so this is another box, and what I did was I came and robbed this bracket off, and I'll have this bracket custom made. I'll have them copy this. This one temporarily will just dangle in here for now. I put the screws back in so they don't get lost. And then when I finish this one over here, that's the one I was working on, it'll end up looking something like this, where the liquid line comes around, clean it up, the pressure control back in there. And you see, since I didn't have the factory control, which again, you know, there's certain things I'm okay with using aftermarket on. And that control's one of them. This thing will last forever. The factory controls go bad all the time. But I put a whip on it, you see in the back of cord, so that way you can pull it out to work on it if you ever needed to make your life easier. So it'll end up looking like this, you know, with this cover on when we're all done. All right, we are back. We have our new bracket that we're gonna install, and then we're gonna go ahead and replace this compressor because that roto is just jammed on there. So we're working on it right now. We got the gas recovered. We're gonna repipe this dryer. This thing had just about ran out of refrigerant too. You can see a big old ice ball in the expansion valve. But yeah, we're gonna get it going, and I'm gonna see if I can clean up this low pressure control also. So the plan is that we're gonna kind of redo some things. So we're gonna unsweat from here. That's the liquid line. We're gonna unsweat from here. That's gonna pop up. We're gonna unsweat from here. That's gonna drop the suction out. We're gonna unsweat from here. When we do that, we'll have nice, clean connections. So that's the plan. Moved everything out of the way so that we can do it. We'll have to get this bracket out of the way. And then the new sight glass and liquid dryer will come around the front and then connect right into that. That is the plan, at least. So that's pretty much it. Every one of these is out now, so I can lift this compressor out of here, and then we'll worry about moving things around once we get the compressor out. So I'm gonna go ahead. Okay, it's a lot of work, but we got everything prepped and ready, so we're gonna start brazing here in a minute. We're just going to get the nitrogen, just like that. You know, I don't like this being so close because it makes it difficult to change the dryer without ruining the sight glass, but you can only do so much. These systems typically don't come with a sight glass from the factory. They never have. So we add them. It does take like an extra 2 ounces of charge or something, but yeah, so we're good. So we're gonna get a nitrogen purge on this thing and then braze everything up. And what I did too was I added service port on the liquid line, service port on the suction line, so now we don't have to pull it out to get to the valves, because if any of you guys have ever worked on these, it's a pain in the butt to pull these units out to get to those valves. So now I'll be able to seal them up and be done. And I forgot to mention that I pulled the suction port rotolock valve out and brazed it outside of the box. That way I could get it lined up perfectly. So the rotolock just needs to be tightened. We've already got the O-ring in there, so that's done. So we're gonna do this joint right here. We're gonna do this joint right here. These joints, these joints, these joints, these joints, these joints, and the joint on the receiver. And then we'll pull a vacuum and do the electrical, and we'll try to clean up the sensing bulb, hopefully without breaking it, and the same thing with the pressure control. So get it clean. Okay. We've got the nitrogen flowing. Try to do this without melting everything. Okay, it's going a little bit, but clean it up right now. Okay, so before I bend that, I'm going to cool that joint, and I'll put something underneath the unit so that way it doesn't fall like that again. So lift that up, wedge a towel under that. Try not to let it catch on fire though. Okay. Baby steps.
This is a cruddy joint. It's into that sight glass, and we don't want to overheat the sight glass. Plus, we don't want to burn the dryer too much. So it's just not going to be great either way. And I know people are going to say, how come I didn't use a heat compound? Because I'm lazy and didn't want to go get it. That should be more than enough solder. I'll get it to pull in now. It is what it is. Can't always be perfect. Notice normally you don't put solder on the fitting before, but because this is a sensitive one, I put it on there and then suck it in. Protect the sight glass now. Is it sacrilege to take a piece of solder weld round rod and braze it to the Paris flat rod? Okay, let's go do this guy real quick. This one. More than enough solder. Now this one's not going to be pretty, but it is what it is, so I'm just going to have to do it. It's a bunch of solder from the old joint. I'm just going to pull that into my weld. Very carefully without overheating. Don't want to heat up the expansion valve. Just get a little bit of solder in there. Make sure it's getting in the joint. And I think we're good. We'll do one more little pass right over here. Make sure we got this corner. And I think that's gonna be it. Is that it? We got that joint, those joints, those joints, those joints, those joints, those joints. I think that's it. So now we're just gonna inspect our welds. Alright, our system is running. We're coming down in temperature. It's 56 degrees right now. We've got a clear sight glass. Notice the way I did things, and you'll see it better once we push everything in, but we've got our ports here so we can access while it's pushed in.
We went ahead and wrapped the dryer with foam tape, so that way it doesn't let someone lean in here and push down on that line and bend it, because there is some room there. We insulated the TXV outlet as best as possible and the sensing bolt as best as possible. And we're going to clean up some of this wiring. It's not R22. We changed that refrigerant over. 404A. Not bad. I mean, we're charging to a clear sight glass, but essentially we've got a 30-degree TD on the evaporator, but it's also under a heavy load because our box temp is 47, 20, so you know, almost 30 degrees, 20 and some change. And then about a 30-degree TD or temperature rise on the condenser. But again, those are just rules of thumb numbers. We're going off of a clear sight glass is what we're watching. So, but we're dropping in temp steadily. We're gonna monitor everything, and we'll get it cleaned up even more so. All right, so we are all put back together. Glare-free shot there. We're running a clear sight glass. So now you see that foam keeps the line from going down. I put some foam just to protect it from this guy rubbing on there. We zip tied up everything. That way it's out of the way, nice and good. Everything's in there nice and neat. We've got a little whip on that pressure control. I made sure I curled up the lines to where they're not rubbing the capillary. So everything's looking good. Clear sight glass, and we're coming down in temp. This thing I think comes down to 34. So this thing is just like a Charleston. It's 0A1. It's the same control as a Charleston. So our set point is 30, and then all the other stuff. The sensors, there's the CB, EL, and LL. LL is not the liquid line sensor anymore because I've said that before, they reuse it. So LL is my air temp. EL and CB are the glycol temps. They're a couple degrees apart, but it's okay. It's coming down right now. So yeah, and that's it. We don't really mess with any of the other settings. So we're back in business. Gonna let this guy come down to temp, and we're gonna wrap this one up. It is 100% done. So.
All right, these jobs, they don't always go as planned. I had all intentions of fixing that leak on that suction service valve, and you know, stuff happens. I couldn't get the rotolock free. And like I had mentioned, you know, in a perfect world, I could have bolted down that condensing unit, and I guarantee I would have gotten that rotolock free, but there was nowhere to bolt it down to be able to still get in there to access that. So you just got to kind of look at, you know, what the cost of the compressor is, you know, how much labor it's going to take, and you got to evaluate things. Okay. So it was easier on that system to go ahead and just replace that compressor with the cost and everything. So customer totally understood. I have a good relationship with my customers, and this one in particular. And I just told them, like, look, this is what we got to do. It's going to be the best bet. And they're like, okay, do it. You know, in the beginning of the video, I showed like how hacked up that box was. I think I've showed that in another video before, because I've been waiting for this one to go down. The customer, we knew when I took over this restaurant that I've been basically rebuilding each one of these one at a time, and we've just been waiting until they became a problem. So this one, you know, we've known it was coming, and then when it finally had a leak, it was time for me to get in there and replace everything. And I cleaned it all up, you know, tucked everything back in there nice and neat, and you know, it all turned out really well. So, you know, I just want to stress that, you know, you need to systematically do things. And if you approach things with a systematic approach and look at the big picture, right? Like I always say, you know, you can catch these problems. So had I gone in there and started chopping up that suction line and different things before I tried to undo that rotolock, you know, that could have been a problem, right? Then I would have had an issue with it. And I was able to luckily get the system back up and operating. That way I wasn't working in the middle of their cook's line in the middle of a lunch rush. So, you know, other people have different ways of doing things, and, you know, it is what it is, to each their own. You know, I just have my crazy method that I do things, and I find it to be very, very successful. So I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these videos. Leave me some feedback, or when you do leave me feedback, that's awesome. If you guys have questions, feel free to leave comments. You guys can send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. And, you know, until next time, I guess, okay? We'll see you guys.